Hey, Amy,
Yeah, Juan?
give me that beat.
It's Baseball Shangri-La with Amy Cuevas and Juan Ramirez.
Hey, Amy, how are you?
Hi, long time no see.
She is Amy Cuevas, and I am Juan Ramirez, and welcome to another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. For those of you listening on the audio portion, please make sure you follow us on the social media. You can follow us on X at BB Shangri-La. On Instagram, Threads, and Twitch, we are at Baseball Shangri-La. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel so you can get the updates as to when we drop our other episodes, our next episodes. Amy, we're going to start the show the way we always start the show with some base running blunders. I know we thought maybe we had one on the last episode when we were talking about stadiums that were built with public funding, but we have come to the conclusion there was no base running blunder, right?
No, we were able to confirm though that Petco Park was built with some public funding. So base running assist. I don't know. I don't know what we're calling it.
I'd say we're good. So let's start the show. Let's get right into it. I want to focus on this show with Anthony Rendon talks to the media, and I just feel that for this guy, whenever he talks to the media, nothing goes right for him. And you could probably say that nothing has gone right for Anthony Rendon since he signed with the Angels. I know, Amy, you sent me some figures. Like he looks like he's had two different careers. His numbers with the Nationals are very different than his numbers with the Angels, right?
Yeah, so of the 546 potential games that he could have played with the Angels, he's played in 200 of them over the last essentially 4 seasons. And one of those was a shortened season. So uh I mean, he hasn't played more than 58 games in a season.
Look, I can understand if you're an Angel fan that you are frustrated and you're upset with him. What we want to talk about, for those of you who are not familiar with what happened, Anthony Rendon was basically asked some questions, and the quote that is dominating, the one that you see shared on social media all the time, is him saying that, referring to baseball, that it's never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. And that quote has kind of sent baseball Twitter on fire. But Amy, you said it's polarizing. So you've heard both sides of the argument, right?
So, I checked in with one of my Angels buddies. I mean, they have him on the team. They're watching, whatever performance he's putting out on the field or if he's injured. So I can understand the frustration. But I've seen both sides all over social media. There's some people that are like, I don't really get what the big deal was. I think some of it comes down to context. I know for me, it's really hard to switch hats. Like media can kind of push sometimes. We wear our different hats. We are media some days. I understand that the role is to get those quotes, get the story. We're also fans, so we want to know what's going on. We also want productive players that you feel like they're putting their heart into the game. And then players are, like I say, they're still human. They get to have feelings. I think when you see just the quote out by itself, I think that can look a little more charged than maybe it was if you see it in context. I know, reading it was totally different than watching him, do the actual interview, and I think I sent you the clip earlier today, where what he said, I mean, he wasn't, like, joking, but he wasn't being super rude to the media, and like, they did ask him the same question, like, 3 times. So, I guess my question would be, we want the players to show their personality, right? He did, and he's getting flack for it. I don't think the quote itself is the problem. I think if anyone else had said it, we would have shrugged it off because people like Max Muncy, Clayton Kershaw, they prioritize their families. They, if something came before baseball, that would be it. So is it more just his performance, his attitude that we need to factor in, the injuries and the playing time that he has. The bottom line, his time on the Angels, it doesn't really stack up against his career with the Nats. So is the problem with him or with the quote itself? I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
I want to be fair to him. So I want to go over the whole passage and not just the quote, because Amy, you and I have both been victims of people taking some of our comments out of context and not painting the whole picture here. So this this was an exchange. I believe it was just primarily between Sam Bloom of The Athletic and Anthony Rendon. So the question is, last year you said you considered retiring. What's your mindset now? Here's Anthony Rendon's response. My enthusiasm has been the same since I got drafted, to be honest with you. I was actually deleting old emails because my storage to my maximum in my email. So I'm going back and deleting old emails. I emailed myself pros and cons of why I wanted to stay in the game. This was in 2014. My thought process of the game has not changed since then. I keep making it this long. Next question. How does your pro and con list compare to 10 years ago? It's a lot different, Anthony Rendon. I'm married. I have 4 kids. My priorities have changed since I was in my early 20s. So definitely my perspective on baseball has been more skewed. Next question. Is it still a top priority for you? Anthony Rendon. It's never been a top priority for me. This is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith, my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving. Next question. Is it a priority? Oh, it's a priority for sure because it's my job. I'm here, aren't I? Next question. Do you want to be here? I don't want to talk to you guys at 7 in the morning or whatever time it is. Next question. Do you want to be here playing baseball for the Angels? I have answered your question, so why do you keep picking at it? So that
And to be fair, those last 2 questions, he said it with a chuckle in his voice. Like he was trying to, play the game while somebody asked pretty much the same question over and over again. So in his defense, like I'm not excusing attitude or anything else that's happened last season. I don't follow him that well. I can't speak to that. But at least in seeing this one particular interview, he was trying to at least be somewhat amiable while they were asking him these questions.
And I'm glad you pointed that out because that's very important. If you just read these comments, I think they go a certain way. But if you watch the video and you're able to hear his tone until the end, I think towards the end he was getting a little annoyed, and that was I believe the rule of journalism is this: you ask a question twice. You ask it once. If they don't answer it, then you ask it again. If they don't answer it the second time, you have your answer right there. They don't want to answer the question. I don't feel that you need to keep harping on it. The original quote that we started with, I want to be fair to him. When he says it's never been a top priority for me, this is a job. I do this to make a living. My faith and my family come first before this job. So if those things come before it, I'm leaving. Where's the lie there? What is so bad about what he said there? Because he's obviously speaking his truth. And I love that you brought up Kershaw because you could sit there. That to me is a quote that I could very easily attribute to Kershaw.
Kershaw, Max Muncy, any of them. They're all very family focused. Um, this is something I even say in my own life. I have a day job. I do that job so that I can do my passion, be with my friends, my family members, whoever. That's what fuels my life. But like if there was anything that was compromised, like I'm going to question that and make changes. I don't think what he's saying here is any different. And you just read off the questions. They're asking about the pro and con list. How does that compare to 10 years ago? But then it goes into asking that more than one time. Is it still a top priority for you? Is it a priority? Do you want to be here? Do you want to be playing baseball for the Angels? Like asked and answered. Like, again, I think what we're looking at are two separate issues. If you want to look at his performance and his attitude from last year or the last couple of years, that is a challenge, and that is something that needs to be figured out on the Angels side. But if we're just looking at this interview on its face, like, I don't see a problem with the quote that is floating out there around there. And I also understand, it's everything that leads up to a moment. So yeah, that would be, for Angels fans, I would assume, very frustrating to see, this is how he's performed up to this point. This is his attitude. This is him dodging media. And now we have this interview versus someone like me who's just coming into it. Like, I've seen, some of his antics, but I'm just coming into it seeing this one interview, and it doesn't have as much of a charge for me because I don't follow this guy very closely. And I guess that's what I mean by it can be very polarizing.
But I think I think you're right. I think it's two different things that are going on here. I think especially the way those questions were pointed at the end, because that's really what this whole interview was about, was, do you want to be here playing with the Angels? But I don't know, maybe you can. I mean, were these questions fair, Amy? Do you think they were fair to him?
I mean, I don't even think it comes down to being fair. I think he answered it already. So, like, to keep asking, like, he gave an answer and he wasn't rude. He didn't walk away. Like, is it a priority? He answered honestly. We want these guys to be honest. We want them to show their personality. He did. He told you what his priority is. If I were to tell you that my family was my priority and then my job, would you have a problem with me saying that? Like that I get to choose. I get to have that opinion. I mean, he hasn't been able to show up on the field, and I think that's where the frustration is. We saw he hasn't played more than 58 games at the most. I think last year he played 43, 2022 he played 47. That's the problem that needs to be addressed. I don't know, when he's playing on the field, does he put his heart into it? That would be the question I would want to know.
Yeah, there was another exchange that I thought was really interesting, and because that's what I also think is part of the problem is we're projecting our perspective onto him. And somehow there has been this belief that this guy, because he's gotten hurt, or like what you said, maybe because he's not producing, that somehow he doesn't want it. And again, we talked about this in prior episodes, equating effort with results. That somehow, if we don't get results, that means that there's a lack of effort. But this is in that same article that Sam Bloom wrote in The Athletic. And I feel like this isn't getting as much attention. And this is why I think it's important that we understand the full context of this whole Rendon thing. And when he was asked about other people's perspectives. And so here's Anthony Rendon's response. They don't know me. They only know the surface area there. They're fans, right? They might know that I'm 6 feet tall and 190 pounds, but they don't know who I am as an individual. Barry Bonds is arguably the greatest player to ever play this game, and people still hate him. You can't make everybody happy. You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. I don't want to have surgeries. You think I like going under the knife and being in pain the majority of the time? I can't pick up my kids. I can't walk. You think I enjoy that? I don't want to do that. Again, where's the lie there? Like, I feel like this guy is saying truths, but there's this belief that you don't want it bad enough. Like, when you're being asked, do you even want to play baseball? Like, look, baseball is his job. There's no lie there. He makes a living playing baseball. And I know we look at it as a game. It's something we don't have the opportunity to do. So therefore, we look at it as, bro, you're so lucky you get to play baseball. I'm sure he still looks at it like that. But at the same time, he also looks at it as, this is my job. My job is to show up at the ballpark at 1:00 in the afternoon for a 7:00 game, put in the work to prepare myself. Another thing that I love is that he says, do you think I like getting hurt? Like, that's the frustration, right? Like Kershaw getting hurt every year. We see it. He wears it. He's very demonstrative. I think that's the other issue, because we compare Anthony Rendon to how other people react. And because Anthony Rendon is not reacting the way that other players are reacting, again, we are projecting onto him that he doesn't care.
I think something that we don't take into consideration, and I can always use myself as an example too, is like I'm very introverted. I can be extroverted when I want to, when the situation uh, it's necessary. But that's not to say that all of these baseball players, yes, they do have a media commitment, but they may not enjoy talking to the media. They could be shy, introverted, how it may, they could be neurotypical, neurodivergent, however that shakes out. So what he thinks is answering questions, again, I'm not putting this on him that this is his situation, but just hypothetically, he could think he's answering the questions and whatever, but we read that as he's being obstinate, he's being difficult. And we don't know his personality. We don't know his situation. We don't know who he is. And again, I think it kind of goes back to your point about effort. Like, is he putting max effort out there when he's there? I don't know. Is some of his attitude, could that be translated to just, personality characteristics? Is he introverted? Is he, neurodivergent, neurotypical, however that falls? Does that factor in? Or, in some cases, like my best friend likes to say, sometimes people are just a-holes. We don't know. I don't know him. He's, we don't get to talk to him that often, and definitely not us on the Dodgers side. But that would be more of a question, I guess, I would put out to some of the Angels fans who have more of an interaction or get to see him play on a regular basis.
Look, as I said, I want to be fair to him. At the same time, it wasn't a good look when he grabbed that fan in Oakland last year. And look, you can attribute it to the fact that he's frustrated and how his tenure has played out with the Angels. It does not justify his actions. But one of the things I saw a lot of, and I wonder if you saw it too, was all the Dodger fans basically saying the Dodgers dodged a bullet, because there was this whole report. And I think this also contributes to how people look at Anthony Rendon, especially Dodger fans. And that is the Dodgers, if you believe it, they were trying to sign him. He turned them down because he wasn't about that Hollywood lifestyle. I feel all the Dodger fans have held on to that, and they hold it against him, and they are just enjoying this. Yeah, did the Dodgers dodge a bullet? Probably, because we're assuming that if he came to the Dodgers, he was going to have the same injuries that he's had with the Angels.
But that comes back to being, hey, we just need to have the right fit in the clubhouse. And I think we've had a couple misses, just a couple, but for the most part, I think the front office does a pretty good job about finding people who fit into the Dodger culture and who are going to come into that clubhouse and give it their all, regardless of what every fan thinks.
But again, this is where I appreciate his honesty. If he didn't want to come and play for the Dodgers, all right, dude, he does. At least, why would you want to go somewhere that you don't want to go to? At least I appreciate that he's up front and said, look, I didn't want to go there, so I didn't go there.
Even the comments about answering questions from the media at 7 a.m. Who wants to be up that early answering questions? Like, the media have a job, they've got to ask the questions. He has a job, he has to answer them. But that doesn't mean that everybody's necessarily enjoying either the hour that it's happening or the questions that are being asked. Like you said, I don't see any lies here. I just think that there are a lot of shades of gray. Going back to, like you said, he had the incident with the fan last year. Not a good look. The way that he's approached the season, dodged media, maybe even dodged, fan interaction. Not a good look. You add all of that together and it's not great. But if you take an incident at face value, like, I think that's what we tend to do. And sometimes, that for the good or the bad of that situation. Like, I can sit here and I can spin a total positive out of this, but does this situation necessitate that? Because he does have, some marks against him. I don't know. I can't make that call.
Look, you and I have both been in the clubhouse, and we know that half of those players don't like answering questions. It's a chore having to deal with the media, especially if it's after a tough loss or they're going through a slump. The last thing they want is to have all these phones stuck in their face and being asked the most obvious questions like, why aren't you hitting? Why aren't you pitching well? Again, I don't I don't read Sam Bloom. Sam Bloom is the beat writer for the Angels. I don't read him on a consistent basis. He's there every day. He's covering. So clearly, I know that they've probably given all those beat writers who cover the Angels. Rendon has probably given them the impression that he doesn't want to be there. So I don't want to say that the question of do you want to be here is fair or it's not fair, because I don't remember anybody, at least none of the Dodger beat writers, asking Noah Syndergaard last year when rough outing after rough outing. I don't recall anybody asking him, do you want to be here? But then again, I think Noah Syndergaard was an utmost professional who always faced the music, and I never saw him give any members of the media a hard time. I don't think that happens with Rendon, but this
And
is
he
now
did. I mean, he did dodge the media for 2 months last year. There were cases where he did say, like, "No hablo inglés," and then, came back and all of a sudden, like, "Okay, I'm willing to talk to the media again." And that's again where I say, like, you can take an event on face value, but there's also stuff that leads up to it. So that's that picture where, because I don't follow him that much, I don't feel qualified necessarily to speak so much on it. But I mean, for me, it really just does come down to finding those fits. And with so many unsigned free agents out there, and people potentially either maybe going to pick some people up before spring training, finishes in the next couple of weeks. Like, if we are going to pick up any other pieces, making sure that those are good fits for our clubhouse.
Well, I also just think that this is a situation where both things can be true. Like what Anthony Rendon is saying is true and it's fair. Um, does it deserve him being dragged through the mud? I don't know, but at the same time, he kind of made his own bed because of the way he treated the media before. Like sometimes, if you have a reputation, you have to ask yourself, did I contribute to this reputation? Like, what did I do to give people this impression? So I think in this situation, I think both sides of this issue are right.
Yeah, I don't think that, the two don't have to be mutually exclusive. And I think it really just is everything kind of adding up on top of itself. And now we've hit this point. And so, here we are with all of these quotes across Twitter, whether you watch the one interview and you're like, it's not that bad. But then you realize, okay, there were a lot of incidents leading up to this. How much of the big picture do you need to make your assessment?
And I saw the jokes, right? It was clear people were like, "Oh, this guy doesn't like playing baseball. This guy hates baseball. They should probably make him the next commissioner of Major League Baseball because he hates baseball so much." But it's one of those things when I see situations like this and I see the reaction, I find it interesting how you see players trying to control their own narratives in the media. All these players that have their own podcast. Mookie has his own podcast. Paul George has his own podcast. Draymond Green has his own podcast. We also have team controlled media. So certain narratives are being established because it's what the team wants out there. Because sometimes, these are questions at the end. Part of me did feel with him. It's like, dude, you've asked me like the same question 3 times. Why are you going to keep what do you want me to say? Just tell me what you want me to say and I'll say it so you can stop asking me the question.
And that's where
A-
I project, because we've been in those media scrums before where there have been some uncomfortable questions asked over and over again. And I feel for the player where it's like, you asked him that already. Like, come on. That I know that is me projecting on this situation, my uncomfortableness from situations that I've been in. And that's where I know, like, that I may not be the best one to make the assessment because I have some bias there.
Yeah. And so I just got this whole thing just got me thinking because look, the Angels have just had a track record of maybe signing the wrong free agent. Like everybody gets excited. I remember they were excited when they got Anthony Rendon, when they signed Josh Hamilton, when they signed Albert Pujols, and things just have not worked out. I know you had a little bit of trepidation when the Dodgers signed Shohei Ohtani, right? And that is the thing. Everybody just assumes, okay, the Dodgers signed Shohei. He's going to be great for the Dodgers. He's going to go to the Hall of Fame wearing a Dodger hat. this is all good. Look, there is a chance, and look, knock on wood, I'm not trying to put it out there, but Shohei is coming back from an injury. And that's the thing that cracks me up, right? About this whole thing. Because all we get in spring training was we see footage of Shohei taking batting practice. Everything is Shohei. Shohei is dominating. And I ask myself this question. It's like, is this newsworthy? Do we need this much coverage on one guy? And the one thing that I look at it is what is newsworthy and what it is important is he's coming back from an injury. So seeing how he's swinging a bat, because we know he's not going to be able to pitch. So the only contributions Shohei's going to be able to make to the Dodgers this year is batting. So when he is hitting and how he's feeling, how he's reacting, that is news. So I hope that means he's on the, he's going to be healthy. He's going to be able to play in Korea, and he's going to have a healthy season where he's going to be able to play the whole season. I hope he doesn't go the route of Anthony Rendon, because that's going to suck, because you want to see the best. You want to see this guy out there and perform. But Amy, like, I guess that's the game, right? You run the risk in free agency. You hope you're making the right decisions and you're signing the right guy for your team. And so far, everything that we've heard from spring training, Shohei is fitting into the clubhouse, even though some fans seem to get upset that, hey, Shohei's going to do live batting practice today. And it turns out he's not. And that Shohei basically makes his own schedule. Look, I guess he's earned the right to do that.
I mean, they're saying that he wants 50 at bats to feel like he's being successful before the regular season starts. It sounds like we're on track for that. I see a lot of people on social media commenting too that he seems happier. Like I don't know. I only saw him play a couple games at Angel Stadium, but like if that's the case, if he feels like he fits in with this team, if they're all kind of gelling together, that makes me optimistic. Like, good for him. I'm glad he found a place where he can come be himself to the extent that he can. We've already talked about he's got to have a security entourage, whatever, with him. But for however much he can interact with his teammates without too much media, too much fan interaction that becomes too much. Good for him. I hope that this is a good segue into the next part of his career.
I've seen those same reports too. And like you, I wasn't following him this closely with the Angels. So look, every time I saw him playing with the Angels and then the dugout, he seemed like he was happy. So again, these are these narratives that are getting put out there that it's like, you got to consider the source. Like, where is this narrative coming from that, oh, Ohtani never did this before, and now Ohtani's doing it over here? Again, this is just, I can't wait for real games to start so we can actually talk about things and not, I say that because what is this show about? We're analyzing, we overanalyze everything. I mean, we just spent almost 25 minutes on what Anthony Rendon said, but it's one of those things that I just keep asking myself. They signed Yamamoto and they signed Ohtani. If those turn out to be great free agent signings, the Dodgers are going to be, they're going to be so good for a few years. But yet you see another team who supposedly does all the stuff. I mean, look, this has happened to the Dodgers before. They signed Andrew Jones. They've signed other free agents, and it doesn't work out for them. And there's just no control. Like, so if like Yamamoto turns out not to be what we expected him to be, or Ohtani, just this injury affects him and he doesn't put up the numbers, can anybody sit there and say, well, the Dodgers messed up and they shouldn't have signed him? Because everybody was on board. Everyone said these are the signings they needed to make. So everything, like, they did what they were supposed to do. It's just sometimes things don't work themselves out.
I
And
would
that's
even
what's
go farther
happening.
than that. Anybody would have signed. Had we not signed any of those guys, someone else would. And in that
Right.
respect, everybody's taking the gamble. This is where I tend to be a little bit more cautious. I don't like those long-ended multi-year deals because it's baseball, because injuries happen. it's not just Shohei that I was anti, like, oh, that's a long contract for a lot of money and the injuries. That would be anybody. Like locking somebody down for that long when you don't know what's going to happen because it's baseball, that worries me. I'm a little more comfortable with like a 3 to 4 or 5 year deal. I know that that's more the shorter end. Teams want to lock down players, but because of health and because these guys only have a certain window where they're going to be at the apex of their career, that like signing somebody to a 10, 12-year deal, you're signing on for all of it essentially. So like that's the good and the bad.
Yeah, I look. When we're talking about free agents, there's still a significant number of free agents that are not signed, and spring training games are starting this week. Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery. I think what's really interesting is the name Cody Bellinger, right? Because I don't know if you've been seeing this on Dodgers Twitter, Amy, but so the Cubs signed old friend of the Dodgers, David Peralta signed with the Cubs. And then they ended up signing another outfielder to a minor league deal. So of course, immediately everybody's just like, well, maybe the Cubs aren't gonna sign Cody Bellinger. Like, what's happening here? And what was interesting was there was a story that came out earlier, and I think it was involving Scott Boras, where I think that they asked the Cubs owner, Ricketts, they asked him about Cody Bellinger, and he said, that there's been some discussions, but it hasn't become a negotiation yet. We're just waiting. We're waiting for whenever he and his agent are going to engage. It could be any time now, or it could be a few weeks. We'll see where it goes. Amy, do you think that's what's really happening? Like literally, Scott Boras is waiting for a team to call. And if that's the case, I know I've heard this. I've heard, well, the Dodgers should go sign him. The Dodgers should go sign Cody Bellinger. I am curious as it progresses into spring training, Blake Snell, Jordan Montgomery, some of these bigger free agents, could they get swept up? I know the Yankees are still the reported interest in Blake Snell. What's become obvious is these teams want to sign these players for the amount they want to sign them for. There's no way the Dodgers can come in there with a 1-year deal with a ridiculous amount of money, right? Like they're done spending money, right?
No, I mean, I don't even think the front office has said that they're done per se. We've been surprised before. I don't take anything off the table with this team. So, I mean, we could see that they may actually be done. I've heard a lot of people on social media saying we should bring Cody Bellinger back even, and I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I don't think I think he's going to hold out for a bigger contract than what the Dodgers would offer him. But considering the season that he had the last couple seasons, where I think he was hitting below the Mendoza line for the majority of those. 2021, he was at 210 in 2022, but not great seasons. And we have James Outman. Are we willing to roll the dice on Cody Bellinger? I mean, are you willing to if that's the rumors going around?
If it's 1 year, if he's willing to accept 1 year, which I don't think he is, but if we're playing this game here where like I mean, how would you feel? You're sitting in spring training. Games are starting and it's like, okay, how much time do you need to get ready for the season? Like if you show up late, is it going to affect your season? And especially a guy like Cody Bellinger, because I feel like people are going to expect him to still prove it, because I don't feel people are completely convinced about the season that he had last year with the Cubs. So if he comes out to a slow start, is that going to force him to press? Is he going to start feeling? I mean, now, if he ends up signing a long-term deal, I'm sure that's not going to faze him. But I do wonder, like that scenario where, all right, if my long-term deal is not there, if I can't get it, and the Dodgers are calling me, and I get to play in that lineup with those guys, and I'm going to benefit, and maybe I can put in another good season, I'll have back-to-back seasons, and then maybe I will get paid. I mean, I think the same can apply to Blake Snell. Like if he doesn't want to take those deals, do the Dodgers, especially with the news with Walker Buehler and other their pitching news, do the Dodgers say, "Hey, we'll give you a 1-year deal, see if you can get." But that again, it's
You think
ridiculous.
Boris would allow his clients to do that?
Probably, and that's what I'm saying. Look, this is a game. This is just playing this, this make believe game, because we're talking about a guy who just won the Cy Young last year, and he's still at home. So I find it very interesting because I'm sure he's still working out. And so my question, what I would love to answer is working out at home the same thing as working out right now with like how the teams are working out in the fields in a team workout, especially once the game starts?
I don't think so, but what choice does he have? I think I was reading there was an article I think in The Athletic where they mentioned that where this happened in years past, and the MLB Players Association had to set up like an unsigned players like spring training just to get them ramped up so that if and when they got signed, they had been working out and not just like at home or whatever. So I wonder if that's kind of the route that we're headed. I know the Dodgers and the Padres are a little ahead of schedule as far as working out than some of the other teams, but I mean that's rapidly closing in for everybody else too. So I don't know. The whole thing is to have what is it? Snell, Bellinger, Montgomery, Matt Chapman, JD Martinez still hasn't been
Yeah.
signed, and he had a great year last year with the Dodgers. Like there's a lot, and that's not even counting the non-Boris clients that are out there. I'm still waiting for
Like
Kike to be signed.
exactly. So if you had your choice in this make believe game that we're playing, Kike or Cody Bellinger, who would you bring back?
Kike, he's a utility player. He can play infield, outfield. He's proven in the postseason. His bat is hotter than Bellinger's has been in the last couple seasons. 100% Kike.
I would have thought that those big names would have been signed by now. I thought the middle of February was definitely but you're right. I think we also lose sight of the fact that because the Dodgers and the Padres started earlier, that even if they sign next week, they'll probably end up having a regular spring training. But it's one of those things where I think it's become perfectly clear that these teams are willing to wait it out. And it seems like the players are the ones that are going to have to cave. And you brought up an excellent point, Amy. Is Boris going to allow them to cave? It's like, no, we'll have your money. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. But the Cubs, it's interesting. Them signing Peralta and signing that other minor leaguer, I think maybe the Cubs are prepared. We got to be prepared too, in case Bellinger goes somewhere else.
I am all for the players getting paid, but at this point, you have to wonder, is this in the player's best interest now, or is the agent, the sports agent, kind of a factor in this whole situation? And is that, I mean, is this the best situation for everybody? Like you want them to get their money. They have a skill set. They should be paid for that. But is he getting in the way of his client's best interest at this point?
Well, I know a lot of people say that, Boris doesn't lose. Boris doesn't lose. These guys are going to end up getting their money. I am very curious to see what they end up getting and if players now will start looking differently at Boris after this situation. Because if these guys don't get the money they thought they were going to get, but then again, the numbers that were thrown out for Snell, like how realistic was that? Like who's leaking that information? Where is it coming from? But
And we'll
like,
never know either, right? Like maybe I wanted X amount of dollars, and if I end up taking like lowballing that a little bit, I'm not going to go broadcast that to anybody that I got less than what I thought I was initially worth. Like we're not going to hear that information unless somebody does leak it, and then it depends on how credible that source is.
no, absolutely. Look, I just love the theory going back to the Dodgers, and it's like, and I get it. It's not my money, but if you've already spent this much money, why not
Go
just
ahead and get Kike. Sorry, what?
Well, no, I mean, but I am curious. Like, the longer this goes, will players be willing to? I just want to play. I just want to play. I'm not willing to sit it out, so
Well, and if they sit
it's
it out, they lose valuable credibility for, again, that skill set. If I don't play this year, how am I staying ramped up? And who's going to sign me the following year when I didn't even get to play? Like that, your numbers are going to go down in any respect at that point. So you either take the pay cut or you don't play.
or we're going to just see a mad dash of players being signed. So that's going to do it again for this episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, is there anything else that you want to say to the people before we go?
No, but spring training games start in 2 days, depending on when you're listening to this, might be even 1.
That is true. So we're going to actually be able to talk about spring training games, and we're not going to be talking about Shohei's batting practice. And for those of you who want to hear discussions about Shohei's batting practice, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I'm just, we're trying to.
Sorry. He did take his first live VP on Monday. There were 15 pitches. He swung at 4, and the final swing was a home run. There you go.
There you go. All right. So we did it. We didn't ignore it. We're trying to provide original content here. Anyway, for those of you guys that are listening on the audio, you can follow us on the social media on X at BB Shangri-La, on Instagram, Threads, and Twitch. We are at Baseball Shangri-La. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. And then also, please tell your friends, tell your other baseball fans if they want something different. They want their Dodger fans, make sure refer them over to us. We're on this journey that Amy likes to refer to. Anyways, she is Amy Cuevas and I am Juan Ramirez. You have been listening and watching to another episode of Baseball Shangri-La. Amy, say goodbye to the people.
Bye.
Goodbye, people.